Leibedek! Baruch Hashem. We're alive. We're alive. Beats the alternative, as the Hashem. Like it says, Lo yamesim yahalaluka v'lo yordei duma. Those who are mace are not able to be mahalal ka. By the way, that's the metaverse. The meta. Meta means dead. The dead universe.
Meta means dead?
Yeah, meta means dead. Mate. Oh. The mate verse. So loy ha meta verse yahaladuka. V'loy kol yordei duma. V'anachnu. Those that are alive. Alive doesn't just mean a beating pulse. It means leibedek. Leibedek. Okay, Baruch Hashem. We're in the Heilige Yam Darkecha, and I guess we're there. We said we're going to learn about the Shemus. Okay, so welcome to Kabbalah 101. Here we go. Let's just jump right in. Essentially, those that are new, we're starting and we're continuing to understand how to totally fuse to true reality. Reality being God. That if God is one, ein oid milvadoi, and that's the message that we've been giving to humanity, then let's just think about it rationally and logically. If God is one, and there's none other, then if I don't fuse into God, then I am leaving reality. And therefore, if I want to be in reality, I need to fuse into the only true reality. So you might say, isn't there only one option? There's nothing but God? The answer is, there is only one option, but God made a system that there's illusions, that you could think that there's something else but God, and get caught up. That's called evil. That's called the Yetzer Hara, that you could get caught up. That's what we were speaking about earlier, Mikey and I, about the nature of that diabolical, psychological identity theft that the evil inclination is doing on a person, convincing them that there's another choice but God. And our job is to realize that it's exactly that. There's no other choice, there's only God. And we're going through a system of understanding how to do that. So now, where we've arrived to is a little bit more advanced. It's all about thinking about different names of God. Yeah. God's names. God's names means the way that God relates to the world. That's what a name is. I said, David Yankid, I'm relating. It's a name, it's a point of relationship. I want to talk to you, but the name is like an entry into getting to you. And the name represents different things, just like your name represents your mission in this world. God's names represent the way that He is acting in this world. So let's see. Shemus HaKadoshim. V'hine, behold, Rabbeinu Arizal, the holy Ari HaKadosh. Shalom Yonatan. Gila lanu eitz ha'gedoyel nefla. The Arizal revealed to us a wondrous piece of advice. The Arizal was the greatest Kabbalist to maybe ever live. And if you say that maybe there was greater, yes, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, but the Arizal was a reincarnation of Rabbi Shimon, so it's all one soul. So the Arizal revealed the most wondrous secrets to us and a piece of advice. If the greatest sage and the wisest man of all time offers you a piece of advice, it's maybe better advice than whatever GQ magazine is offering as advice. You might disagree with that, but if you think rationally about it, you'll probably agree. So let's see what the Arizal is telling us about. This advice is literally a new light. It's like a new take on life. It invigorates your whole life with like fresh ore, fresh light. Vihi, and what is that light? What is it? Soid hayichudim, the secret of unifications. godly unification. So you might say, what's a unification? People that are evil in the world are always trying to do something called separating. They want to make everything separate. They want to say that there's no God, or even if there is a God, he doesn't have a relationship to me. They're always trying to make machloikis, make disagreements, make fighting. They're trying to separate things, to make people battle each other and say evil speech, just to separate people. He's so different than you, and you're so different, meaning in a battle, like you have nothing in common. They'll find the things that you don't have in common. Whereas the tzaddikim are always trying to find the things that you have in common. That's called yichudim, to bring things together. They try to make husbands and wives stay together as opposed to leave each other. They try to make people see what we have in common as opposed to what we have not in common. Yichudim means making unification in the world. The ultimate unification, think about this for a moment, is God and God's complete unity. Which means if you start thinking in those terms, we have everything in common because we're all from God. To the degree that you can really meditate on that, you start feeling so connected to other people. So let's hear where this is going. To the degree that I know God's unity is a pure unity, there's nothing but God. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Hashem is one. Not one in a sequence of numbers, but one, absolute unity. To the degree that I can go to that reality, I start feeling much closer to other people because we're all one in that reality. But to the degree that I don't think about God's unity, that absolute unity, then what is my relationship to everything in the world? Exactly what you see. He's not like me, and she's not like her, and you're not like this, and you do things differently, and you look like this, and you have a nose that's like this, and your nose is like this, and you're white, and you're black, and you're this, and that. Everything becomes, you're not like me. We're all about finding all the things that we have in common. That's called yichud. Any person who has a true desire to really cleave to God, devekas, to really be connected in a real way to God, bevadai, certainly. Certainly he will want to fulfill this advice given to us by the sagely Arizal. To start working on this thing called yichudim, seeing how everything is unified. Because this is a wondrous key that opens up all of the gates and all the doors of real intimate connection with God. What's the simple meaning of a yichud? Okay, he's actually going to a very practical and also very, you're actually going to be engaging in a technical concept right now. The simple meaning of a yichud, like we mentioned, is unifying. That's the simplest way to talk about it. He's going to mention it okay, now we move from the simple to just the simple now. What's the simple? I gave you the simple. Now the simple meaning, L'tzayir b'machshavtoi shem kadosh. To imagine in your mind's eye, your pineal gland, your Pineal gland. To imagine it. And anybody who says, oh, but I did so much stuff growing up, it's all withered up, and I drank fluoride, and it's all withered up like a withered up raisin. Don't worry about it. You can grow it back again. It's all calcified. It turned into a barnacle, some coral reef up in there. Don't worry about it. Because in yeshiva, all we do is pump up that gland. Okay? That's a chizik for the olam. Okay? That's all we're doing, especially here. We're just pumping that muscle. Okay? You imagine in your mind's eye one of God's names. Okay? So let's just do something simple for now. What's the most maybe classic of God's names? It's called the Shema Etzem Yud Kei Vav Kei. Okay? This is not just an exercise and like a meditative exercise of like trying to, see letters in your brain. But it does include that. I want you guys now to close your eyes. And we're going to begin more simple. I want you to try to imagine in your mind's eye right now a yud. We're not going to do the full yud kei vav kei. We're just going to try to see a yud. So close your eyes. Now you probably see something similar like I'm seeing, like a blackish, but it has like light. If you can actually create a yud in that space, and it means you're mamish. You've been hanging around Itchimeyer for a long time. But even if you don't see an actual yud, but you can imagine, let's just start imagining the letter yud and see it forming like a concept, or even maybe you do see a yud. Just see the yud. And for some people it's even easier to see the whole yud kei vav kei. By the way, the more time you spend looking at Yud Kei Vav Kei, like written out, the more it's blazoned into your consciousness, that you start to see it. I mean literally seeing it. Shivisi Hashem L'negdi Samid. Even before you see it, it could be that you feel it though. You like could see it almost kind of carving out, or like a flash of it. Okay? You can open your eyes. So the tzaddikim walk around where they actually see these letters. Literally. They see it. It's not only like Yud Kei Vav Kei. They see human beings like Yud Kei Vav Kei. Like, by the way, your head is a Yud, and you're like your hand is the Hey, because right, it's like a Hey. And your torso is the Vav, and your legs are like the bottom Hey. Even your two arms are like also like a Hey. So you start walking around, and you see like these Yud Kei Vav Kei creatures like walking around. Okay, one second. So you might not see the guy like literally as a Yud and then a Hey and then a Vav, but you could conceptually see that there's such a thing as a Yud. The Yud always means the highest point, the spiritual point. It's the smallest letter. It's like an intellectual. That's your head. And you see when a person, this is a classic example, when a person gives a coin to charity, right? So what does that coin represent? He takes the coin and he gives it to a poor man. So the Sfarim say the coin is the letter Yud, because look, it's like a little Yud. And your hand is the Hey. You see it? Hey is the Gematria 5. So I've got a Yud, and my hand is a Hey, and my arm is the Vav, and I'm extending my Vav. And the poor man's hand is the final Hey. So when you see a person giving tzedakah, you're seeing Yud Kei Vav Kei all everywhere. Okay? The kind of thing we're talking about here is literally seeing names, not only that you could see letters, but you see the concept of the letters. Things start reminding you of the letters. I just want to begin with a story. This is like an introduction to everything we're going to talk about. When the Balatanya, Schusa Ganalena, was on his deathbed, famous story. And he was about to die. So he told his grandson, he said, what do you see when you look up? They were in a log cabin. And what do you see when you see the ceiling beams? So he said, Zaidi, I see beams. I see ceiling beams, pieces of wood. So Zaidi, what do you see? So he said, I see the letters Kuf and a Vav and a Resh and a Hey, Kaira, which is the letters beam. I see God shining those letters in and out of existence every single second. I see it being like matrix stuff. I see it The letters forming the beam are, I see God creating it. I see the world in letters. I'm seeing it. And the letters, of course, they're just packages to bring God light into the world. So when you start learning these names and learning the Hebrew letters, you start getting to the fabric of existence. And you start knowing how you can actually work with the fabric of existence. And if God's name, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, means compassion, is literally the act of like giving a coin to a poor, i.e. giving life to creation. So you start knowing how to use names of God to create and build worlds. You can do amazing things. That's why the big tzaddikim, the highest level of learning, by the way, is these things called yichudim. Is all day you're just thinking about these letters and thinking about these combinations and creating universes based on this. That's very powerful stuff. So the Arizal said, anybody who really wants to like get going, all the guys that it's like their first day, they're here like, oh, what did I walk into? Jonathan's like, I just got off a plane. What's going on here? So, but this is where it's at. Okay? Remember we said this is a long journey. This is a 6-month project. But we're starting to get our feet wet. Okay? Look what the Rebbe says down below. Kuf Lamed Vav. There's a few ways to do this. One of the ways is you can actually look at one of God's names written. Or you could do what we were talking about, seeing it a bit like in your mind's eye. Like you see it with your spiritual eyes. Or if you're not able to do that, as Yakshav ki'ilu shoymei kol, this is cool. Think as if that I'm hearing a voice, she'omer loy oisei b'machshavtei, like a voice that's saying the name to me. Yeah.
How it's like ideally supposed to be pronounced, or how we pronounce it.
So you have to be careful in Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, because you don't want to hear a voice and all of a sudden say something. Be very careful. When you begin, start like we said, like see a yud. Go one letter at a time. Just practice those muscles. Most of these muscles have atrophied so much because we watch hours of just the getchkala, and therefore the brain is not thinking. The pineal gland is not pumping. We're just like doped up on excitochemicals and Pringles and Coca-Cola, just numbing. Yeah, exactly. They're also bought up by Coca-Cola. By the way, basically everything is either bought up by one of these, Chevras, and then they're all the same. You understand? It's like, oh no, that one's Pepsi, that one's Coke. It's different. It's a yichud. So it's different things, Rabbi. Yeah. Come on. This one's a Marlboro, this one's like a whatever, Parliament, this one's a 5P, this one's a this one. It's all the same. It's all the same thing. And because we've been sort of like bombarded with this stuff, we're like numbed. We're numbed from actually working these muscles. So in the beginning, it's a bit hard to have these meditations. But if you keep with it, you will get it, and then you'll have real life. Real life. Gam Tamid Tov, it's also always good. Let's just finish this piece. Bizman HaMachshav B'Shemus HaKadoshim, it's also a good thing when you're thinking, L'nagen Bepen Nigen Me'oirer, to have a shtickle nigen. The famous one is di da 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 di da 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 hey ya da 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 hey ya da 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 hey ya da 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 di da 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 ha ya. Brother, just hearing that niggin gets me all excited. Anytime that you hear that niggin by tzaddikim, it's usually like they're about to, like they're going places. So the Olam starts getting going with like a song like that, and they start traveling through universes of Yud K, Vav Ks and stuff, okay? So there's such a thing as you do a little shtickle niggin. I'm not talking about like, there's this guy, I can't remember his name. We're not talking about like a Biggie Smalls niggin. We're talking about a heilige niggin. He's like a holy niggin. And it brings you, it opens things up. The kol shekenim yesh like kli negina or menagin kosher. Look at this. All the more so, if you have an instrument, it can get you mamish going, or kosher music, a menagin, like with kosher music. The Rebbe is saying there's something with live music. By the way, you know how we used to arouse prophecy? Prophecy? Through music. Through music. The prophets would have musicians sit around them and they would play holy music. Holy music. That's why you have to be very careful the music you listen to. We'll make that another time we'll talk about. And when they would play this holy music, it would arouse the prophet to such a degree of like excitement. He would start seeing all the names, and then he went. And God would speak in prophecy. The prophet knows with absolute clarity that he's experiencing prophecy, which we'll talk about in Derech Hashem, in our Way of God class. An unbelievable thing. Okay, so in review, we opened up a new world today because the Arizal said, I've got some good advice for you, called Yichudim, to make things unified, to get back to the fabric of existence. That's going to relate to seeing God's names, thinking about God's names, arousing, and it's not just an academic exercise like I can see God's name, but it's going to be I can feel the feelings associated with those names and what that means. And with that, Bezrat Hashem, we're going to be going weiter, and give a Kaddish Baruch a tremendous nachas and see Mashiach Tzidkeinu v'mehera v'yameinu. Amen. Have a wonderful day. Kol tov.